now available in paperback and e-readers. Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door takes on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed, all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess featuring a bonus pin-up and the other 2 books in the Cyber Goddess saga at online bookstores everywhere today. There are reports that Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige has been stretched too thin. And that's really being shown in the quality of the products that are being released by Marvel Studios over the course of Phase 4. And as a publisher, I have been in the same shoes that Kevin Feige has been in, and I've made some of the same mistakes that Kevin Feige is making right now. And I'd like to offer Kevin Feige some advice in order to help him improve the quality of his films, because as again somebody who has walked in his shoes, I know where to solve the problems that he's currently having with Marvel Studios right now. Now, back in 2013, when I was building up the SJS Direct imprint, I had a plan to release 4 Isis series books over the course of a year. And what I wanted to do was follow in the footsteps of Golden Age comic book publishers like Marvel Comics and DC Comics, and go out here and publish a series in a quarterly manner like they did in the Golden Age. Unfortunately, what I was doing was pushing myself too hard, and as a result, the quality of my early Isis series books really took a serious tumble. Now, in 2013, I had published Isis, the Beauty Myth, and Isis, My Sister, My Frenemy, and Isis, All About the Goddess. And sadly, as I was working on the Beauty Myth, I had an issue with the cover, and on Isis, My Sister, My Frenemy, I had an issue with the interior of the book. And when I looked at the interior of Isis, My Sister, My Frenemy, and I saw numerous typos in the book and numerous issues with the prose and the sentence structure, that's when I realized I was pushing myself too hard, and I just decided to stop. And the reason why I stopped is because I wanted my books to be of the highest quality. So I realized that I could not go out here and just try to maintain this schedule where I was going out here pushing out 4 books a year, because pushing out 4 books as related to quantity was really leading to a decline in the quality of my publications. So in an effort, I just decided to stop and regroup. And as I regrouped, I started to say, hey, I cannot produce this many books and maintain a high level of quality. So instead of publishing a 4th book over the course of that year, I decided to stop production before I released All About the Goddess, and I decided to take a look at the way I was approaching my business. And what I did was say, okay, I'm not producing quality right now, and I really need to just slow down. And that's one of the things I believe your Kevin Feige really needs to do at Marvel Studios, is he needs to slow down. He's trying to produce a lot of products at a fast pace, and he believes that he needs to produce a lot of product at a fast pace in order to keep the attention of the audience. And I know from personal experience that the audience that really loves your products are going to be there. So there's no need to keep rushing out product, because if your customers like the characters, they're going to want to pick up that next adventure, and they're going to want to follow that story. So all you need to do is take your time. And That's what I did with the ISIS series, starting with the All About the Goddess. I started to slow down, and after I did All About the Goddess in 2013, I decided in 2014 I was only going to produce one ISIS series book, and I was going to take my time putting that book together. And at that point, I realized that I could not do everything alone. And instead of trying to do things like do the covers myself, that's when I decided to contact Bill Walko, an artist, to start doing the work on the covers for the ISIS series. So I also understood that I could not do things on my own, and I believe Kevin is trying to do everything as related to the Marvel Cinematic Universe on his own. And what your Kevin Feige really needs to do is he really needs to start delegating and letting craftspeople work on his projects. Now, there's a big problem with Kevin Feige as I see it. He hasn't gone out here and looked to hire qualified talent because he's trying to rush out so many projects. And that's why, again, I believe he needs to slow down. And as he needs to slow down, he needs to start cutting back on the number of projects that he produces. And I really think that he really needs to just cut back, because less is more. That's a lesson I learned working on SJS Direct over the last couple of years. And yes, I do produce 4 titles over the course of a year, but back in 2013, I produced a record 13 titles, and it was just getting to be too much for me. So I cut back on the projects I produced from 13 projects a year to 4 projects, because I understood that while I was making a quantity of products, there wasn't really a lot of quality as related to them. But when I can go out here and produce 4 projects a year, I can produce high quality as related to 4 as in comparison to 13. So in addition to slowing down, Kevin really needs to put out less projects, because I've heard from many comic fans out here saying that they would appreciate it if Kevin just made a 1 project every 2 to 3 years as related to the MCU, and the movies be of quality, then go out here and produce 4 or 5 projects and they're just all terrible. And again, that's exactly what I did with SJS Direct. I said, okay, I need to produce less projects and focus on the quality of those projects. And we're starting to see all of this rushing and trying to rush out a large quantity of projects really impacting the quality over at Marvel Studios, because with projects like the Phase 4, we've seen them go out here and produce poor quality movies like Black Widow, which really didn't fit into the Phase 4 because Natasha was already dead. And then we're seeing no real vision as related to connecting all of the other films like Eternals, Shang-Chi, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Thor, Love and Thunder, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. We're not seeing how these films are synergizing in the same way that they did at Phase 1 through 3 of Marvel Studios, and that's because your Kevin Feige is stretched too thin, stressed out, and he's burning himself out because he's burning himself at both ends, and that's really leading to an impact on the quality of the projects he's producing. And again, I myself have been there back in 2013, and I realized what I needed to do to get things right on track with SJS Direct, and I realized, hey, I gotta stop, I gotta slow down, and I've got to start focusing on the quality of my products. And if it takes a little while for those products to come out, the audience will appreciate it. The audience will still be there because fans who really care about the characters and care about the stories, they're gonna come back to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they're gonna come back and be more enthusiastic about the product because they want to go and see a story that's true to the source material, and they're going to want to see a story with well-developed characters. And that's what most comic fans really want. And sadly, Kevin Feige, he's trying to pander to audiences. And when you pander to audiences, you're coming from a position of weakness. And as a creator, you want to come from a position of strength where you have confidence in your material. And this is what Kevin Feige really needs to start showing as related to his material, is confidence. Because right now he's coming from that place of insecurity, trying to rush out material, trying to get material out here, hoping to try to grab the fast dollar from the customer. But that's how you alienate customers, because if you're trying to go out here and get a fast dollar, it shows that you're not looking to create something of quality. No, what you want to do is try to put out a lot of projects in the hopes of making faster money. But the whole thing is, faster money doesn't lead to quality, because it's quality work that gets the customer interested in supporting your project. So when I look at Kevin Feige again, he's making major mistakes that basically can lead to the decline of a product. And I believe that he is having a lot of these studio executives buzzing in his ear, and a lot of these toy executives buzzing in his ear, because they want to go out here and grab cash. But the irony is that their actions lead to the cash stop flowing out into their hands, because the customer has no incentive to buy merchandise in from a mediocre movie with a really terrible story. And that's the big problem again at Marvel Studios, is they don't really have that vision, because the visionary is overwhelmed. And as a visionary who was starting to overwhelm himself back in 2013 because I tried to do too much, I realized that I needed to pull back. And again, your Kevin Feige needs to pull back, and he needs to go out here and really start holding off on projects until and stop announcing all of these different phases, and just wait until you have a concept ready to go. Now, the whole phase 1 through 3 had a lot of planning, but he needs to start going into that planning for your phase 5, because if he doesn't, phase 5 is going to be a phase 4, and your phase 5 will be a fail 5, and that's not how you do it. If you don't release a story until it's ready. That's what I learned. And as related to the story, The Man Who Rules the World, because while I had plans for a sequel to The Temptation of John Haynes as far back as 2012, I didn't really put fingers to the keyboard for that story until 2015. And I didn't put any fingers to the keyboard because the time really wasn't right to put fingers to the keyboard, and I didn't have the right antagonist. Originally, I planned for the Block to be John Haynes' antagonist for Man Who Rules the World, but I realized that that villain wasn't going to work, and instead I chose the God Cassius character. And when I chose the God Cassius character, that basically made the Man Who Rules the World into one of the best antagonists for John Haynes, and basically took the character to another level in 2016, along with the story Isis Bride of Dracula. So when a writer goes out here, they have to wait for the right time to write a story, and they have to wait to the right time, because that ensures you're going to get a high level of quality on a story. So one of the things I learned to do was not just rush to the keyboard to just write a story. No, I would wait until I got the story elements together, until I got the hero, the antagonist, the plot points, the character development, and the story points I wanted to put in the story. Then I went and put fingers to the keyboard and put that story out there. Same thing happened with Eternal Night. I waited for a good 5 or 6 years before I wrote that story, and I had to wait because while I had ideas for Lilith Graves' origin, nothing was really concrete. But I decided, I need to wait for the right time, because if I'm going to fit your Lilith Graves into the SJS Direct universe, she needs a quality story that showcases her as a character and showcases how she's going to flow organically into the SJS Direct universe. And as I was putting that story together in 2019 and 2020, I just took my time and went about it, and I didn't really rush that story, because I said, I'm not going to release this story until it's ready. And that's what Kevin Feige really needs to really start thinking about, because if you're having problems like I've heard as related to Blade, where you have a screenplay that is just not even filmable at this point, that's a problem, because you're rushing out too much product and you're not really thinking about the quality of the product. And that's one of the drawbacks of going out here and doing things in phases is, you have everything set up as related to a sequence, but everything is not flowing organically in each other, because you didn't really plan how each of these projects is going to flow into the other with this phase 4. And your Kevin Feige, basically, he's not really having the vision as related to this phase, and he's getting overwhelmed because he's not taking that break. And you really need to take that break and slow it down. And you need to slow it down, because once you slow it down, you can start taking a critical look at your story, starting to take a critical look at your characters, start taking a critical look at how your stories are going to flow into each other. And that's something I do on the SJS Direct imprint. I make sure these days that if I write a story, it's going to flow into other stories organically. And I take a look at how each story is going to fit into the overall universe, and I try to make sure that every story fits into the continuity and just works organically into previous stories, because the current story that I do has to sell the previous story. And that's something I do on SJS Direct books, like the recent John Haynes at Death's Door comic. I made sure that the continuity flowed into John Haynes, A Conversation with Death, Isis, Bride of Dracula, The Temptation of John Haynes. And you have to do this if you want to have a consistent universe. But in order to work at a consistent universe, you need to, again, slow down, because while you think you have to strike while the iron is hot, no, you have to strike and make sure that each strike has an impact. That's what every good publisher has to do, and any person who runs a studio or an editor-in-chief. You have to make sure that, yes, you want to strike while the iron is hot, but you want to strike in a way that has an impact that really creates a compelling story that gets the viewer or the reader coming back. And that's not what Kevin Feige is doing right now. Right now, again, he just is constantly rushing out product, rushing out, hiring people who aren't qualified, like the staff on the She-Hulk show. I would fire everybody as related to that show, apologize to the audience, and then come out with a brand new She-Hulk Season 2, hopefully that would reestablish the character, and that would come later on. Again, he's rushing out too much product, he's not taking his time, and that's leading to the decline of Marvel Studios. But this is a course that can easily be corrected, because if I could go out here and correct course on SJS Direct over the course of 2013, and your Kevin Feige could also correct course, and if I could do this on a small scale, then your Kevin Feige could possibly do this as well as related to Marvel Studios. Yes, you may have to change some of the schedules for many of the movies that are announced, but it's better to change it now in pre-production than to go into production with a movie like Blade and create a mess that could possibly lead to the whole studio and the superhero genre going into rock bottom. But again, that reason why Marvel Studios is on the brink of hitting rock bottom is because your Kevin Feige doesn't want to go out here and ask for help from qualified people like myself or others out here who have a passion for the craft, who know how to work logistics, who know how to lay out a sequence for storytelling, because the core foundation of Marvel Studios should be storytelling, but over the last decade and a half or so, it seems like we've lost focus on story and source material, and everybody's deviating from story and source material because your Disney executives want to make a fast dollar, and that fast dollar may possibly lead to the quick derailing of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And again, it would be sad to see that because, again, I know from experience that about the mistakes your Kevin Feige is making, because I've made those same mistakes myself early on, but thank God I was able to correct course. And as I corrected course, I was able to get SJS Direct back on track. And yes, people may have to wait for certain stories, but I'd rather have people wait for a story than put out a poor quality story that winds up upsetting people and leading to them giving me bad word of mouth, like many Marvel Studios movies are getting. I would rather wait and then release a book before going out here and releasing something that really isn't of quality. So that's one of the things I learned over the years, is I would rather, again, just hold back and not release something rather than release something of poor quality. For example, I've had people ask me to write a follow-up to The Man Crisis, and while people wanted a follow-up to The Man Crisis way back as far as 2019, I held back and said, no, I'm not going to produce anything that quickly. Yeah, I could have struck while the iron was so-called hot, but I would rather wait to produce something rather than rush something out like I did back in 2013, where I did, again, 13 books over a year. I would rather wait and go out here and produce something of quality like Stop Simpin' in cyberspace, instead of rushing out a follow-up to The Man Crisis like The Woman Crisis back in 2019, which wouldn't have been of quality. So I held back, did Stop Simpin' in cyberspace, then I went and did The Woman Crisis. I had people asking me for a Woman Crisis as far back as 2020, but I wanted to make sure that the book was of quality. I wanted to make sure that I had the facts all straight. I wanted to make sure that the research was on point, and that's why I held back, and that's why that book is basically took 2 or so years to go out here to put together, because I would rather wait to put a product out there, because I know that if the customer really wants the product, they're going to be there. And again, it's not about striking while the iron is hot. It's about making sure that when I strike, it has an impact on the audience. So that when I look at Kevin Feige, again, I have walked in his shoes. I've made these mistakes, and I see where he's taking Marvel Studios over Phase 4. That's leading it to becoming Fail 4, alienating the viewers, and he doesn't understand that if he doesn't start focusing on quality, that we may start to see the end of the superhero movie genre for a second time as related to the entire fantasy genre. Now, this is my advice to Kevin Feige as related to this, to working in the entertainment industry, because I've seen people come and go, and I really don't want to see the superhero genre be put out of commission for another 10 or 15 years, and I don't want to see all of the people not ever experiencing how great comics and superheroes are. So that's why I want to give Kevin Feige some advice. Now, if you want to pick up some of my action-packed fantasy fiction on the SJS Direct imprint, like the Isis series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy. You can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBook Store, and Google Play. And if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, and my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, E-Steam Horror of a Hyena Woman. Hell's Aspiring Angel takes on a wicked werewolf in this action-packed all-new E-Steam series adventure. Get E-Steam Horror of a Hyena Woman in paperback and e-readers today.